Welcome to the explainer. You know that feeling when you try to explain a long article to a friend and you just end up rambling? Or you read some dense report and think, man, I just wish I knew the main point. Well, today we're going to fix that. We are diving deep into a seriously powerful skill, the art of the précis. So let's just get right to the heart of it, right? The big question we're tackling is this. How do you take something massive and complicated and boil it down to its absolute essence? And I'm not just talking about the main ideas, but its soul, the original author's tone, their intent. That's the real challenge, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. And here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll nail down what a précis actually is. Then we'll cover its 3 core principles and the specific writing mechanics you've got to know. From there, we'll get into the super important rule of objectivity. And finally, we'll walk through the process of taking your messy rough draft and polishing it into something great. Okay, first things first, what in the world are we even talking about when we say press it? Because, it's a lot more than just a summary. It's a whole discipline. So let's break this definition down. A précis is a concise summary, sure, but the key parts are that you have to capture the original text's theme and its tone. And here's the kicker. You have to do it in your own words. Plus, there's a really strict target you're aiming for, about 1/3 of the original length. I love the analogy of an architectural blueprint. A blueprint shows you the whole structure, right? The main supports, the overall design, but it leaves out all the furniture and the paint colors. A précis does the exact same thing for a piece of writing. All right, let's move on to the absolute non-negotiables. Think of these as the 3 pillars that every single great précis is built on. If you can get these right, you are well on your way. The first and honestly the most famous rule is just extreme brevity. And as you can see, this isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a hard target. You are aiming to shrink the original text down to 1/3 of its length. And trust me, that's not easy. It forces you to be absolutely ruthless about what's essential versus what's just extra detail. What's so cool about this is how these 3 steps really flow into each other. First, you have to read super carefully to figure out the main idea, the central argument. Then, with that theme as your guide, you become ruthless, just cutting out every little detail, every example, every repetition. And then, finally, you rebuild what's left using your own words, which, by the way, is the best way to prove you actually understand the material. Okay, now we're getting into the technical rules of the road. And these aren't just, stylistic suggestions. These are the nuts and bolts that give a précis its professional, objective structure and make sure it's clear. This slide illustrates a really crucial shift in perspective. When you're writing a précis, you're not part of the conversation. You're a reporter documenting what was said. So you absolutely have to write in the 3rd person. No I think or we feel. And you have to change any direct quotes into indirect speech. Your job is to report on the text, not to critique it. Now, this next one is a little subtle, but it's so important. You are reporting on what the author wrote, right? That's an action that already happened. It's in the past. So your précis should almost always be in the past tense. You'd say, the author argued, or the study found. The only exception, a universal truth, something that's always true, like, the earth revolves around the sun. And you can see right here in the source material that these aren't just new ideas we're making up. They've been the standard for a long time. I mean, look at rule number 6. A précis is always written in the 3rd person. Bam! Or rule 5, which talks about using your own words, but keeping some key phrases. This is time-tested stuff for making sure you're representing the original accurately. Okay, this next principle, it might be the most difficult one, but it's also the most important. To write a true précis, you have to become this totally neutral channel for the original author's ideas. You have to be completely, 100% faithful to the source. This quote from one of our sources just says it all. No alien ideas. What this means is you cannot, under any circumstances, add your own opinions, your own interpretations, or any outside info. You have to fight that natural urge to comment or to critique, or even just to agree with the text. Your only job is to boil down what's already on the page. Nothing more, nothing less. Being objective also means you have to know what to cut. So things like repetitive phrases, little descriptive details, and all those extra examples, they're usually the first things to go. But be careful with statistics. As the source material points out, you can often leave out generalized figures. But if a specific statistic is totally fundamental to the main argument, then it absolutely has to stay. And check this out. Looking at a different source, we see the exact same rules popping up again and again. Rule number 6, omit examples. Number 9, no alien ideas. Number 10, no repetition. When you see this much consistency across different guides, you know just how fundamental these principles are to the whole craft. Okay, so we have covered all the theory and the core rules. So for our final section, let's get practical. How do we take all this knowledge and actually go from a rough mess of ideas to a polished professional précis? Here's the thing. Nobody gets this perfect on the first try. The source material is really clear that a rough draft isn't just a good idea, it's totally essential. This is where you do all the hard work, the condensing, the rewriting, and once you're happy that your draft is clear, concise, and accurate, you finish it off with a title. And that title should be short, right to the point, and perfectly capture that central theme you worked so hard to find back at the beginning. So here's the real takeaway from all of this. Learning to write a good précis teaches you something so much more valuable than just a writing trick. It actually trains you to read actively, to find the true heart of an argument, and to fully understand someone else's perspective without injecting your own. In a world that's just full of noise, this skill teaches you how to truly listen. So the real question is, what will you hear when you start?